Well, what's up, dude?
Not much, just trying to survive the quarantine coronavirus pandemic bullshit.
Yeah. Um,
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Had a pretty productive day today, which is nice.
What'd you do?
A lot of things. Recorded vocals for some acoustic thing and um worked on the next Boss Pod episode that's coming out tomorrow
Hmm.
and cleaned my
Who's on that
house.
one?
The next one, the one that's coming out tomorrow, is the guy that I wrote ADHD AF with. His name's
Oh,
Sean
cool.
Bowe. He's really cool dude. Yeah. So, what has your day been like?
I mean, are we starting the podcast now? Is it
Oh,
start?
we can if we want. Yes, this is it's chill. It's chill.
All right, let's do it. So every damn day is the same.
Yeah.
It's bad. I mean, and I know that I'm not the only musician with kids, and I'm not the only artist with kids going through this, right? So we work from home. Mostly, most I guess most artists, right? Unless you're lucky enough to be so successful that you have a off-site studio or something that you can go to. Um, so I feel like most people in the world are going through this. It's not unique to us as artists, but it's just interesting. I see two worlds. I see worlds where my friends that have families and have kids and don't. And the experience of the pandemic it's just so different because you're either isolated and alone, and then you're left to your own devices with loneliness. And my friends with addiction and alcoholism are not doing well, right? Because it, loneliness is just madness for people that have any addiction or alcoholism.
Do you get lonely? Are you the
Me?
type?
No. I'm always surrounded by people. I want to be alone. All I want is 5 minutes to myself. That's all I ever want in the world.
No, I
I
feel
have
you.
to I have to claw and fight for 5 minutes to myself. I'm always being I have two kids. So I have a baby that's either, vomiting on me or climbing on me or drooling on me or whatever and screaming in my ear. And then I have a 6-year-old who always wants my attention, wants to play, and she's climbing on me. I'm a jungle gym to her. So there's just always people on me. And
I'm
yeah.
definitely the introvert type. I love being alone. And I think it's kind of funny you mentioned like artists having a different experience with this quarantine and people with addiction. And when you're alone with your thoughts, you start to realize
Sure.
if your relationship with yourself is healthy or not. And I feel like I had training because I do spend a lot of time alone. But I think what was such a shock for me is I was on tour for the 3 months before the whole quarantine thing happened. So that was the hardest part, was just like crazy go, 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 see all these people all the time, meeting fans, like thinking I'm going to be touring the world for the whole year, and then just like black hole, nothing at home. Yeah.
It was your expectation of what you wanted for the year, what you were expecting, completely got 180'd. And I had the exact same experience as I'm sure everybody else has. My whole world was flipped upside down too. I feel like, as far as, it's interesting because you're talking to someone who's stuck at home with two young children, and my wife and I have to manage the whole household 24/7, and we're not going anywhere. So it's very every family has the same story. Everyone's cooped up. Everyone's going crazy. Everyone's ready to kill each other. Not, you know what I mean? I never want to kill them, but I want some semblance of alone time. I never get to be alone with my wife anymore, ever. Um, so I think everyone's going crazy there. But what I was going to say about what's unique to it in terms of being a working artist, songwriter, recording artist, whatever, what have you, I think it's just as damaging to that perspective of my life because there's no time for what is happening in me creatively. So even as I'm having ideas, and I'm flooded with ideas because of all this, you know what I mean? There's so many emotions, there's so many feelings, there's the want and the drive to create. And it's similar. It's similar to wanting to be like, I just want to be alone and watch a TV show, or like, I don't get to, so I'm not getting, it's not evening out for me. So I have to work hard to carve out time to do anything,
Because
including,
your wife works during the day too.
right. So we take turns with the kids.
Yeah. And does that mean, when you're quote unquote working, that's like recording meetings, like specific to that? And then like
Right.
your alone time kind of gets put aside because it's like, well, you're not really working, even though I feel so much a part of being an artist is taking that time to kind of zone out or like play around with things in Pro Tools or whatever. And it's like, since you're having to go back and forth and trade like that, do you get that time?
No. The only time I get is structured, 2-hour periods where I'm co-writing, like when you and I do a Zoom session, or when I do a Zoom session with another writer. It's so structured. It's like 2 to 4. I have this time to write a song. Luckily, we get it done, because luckily we have always been able to write an entire song within a 2-hour period. And I'm able to with other producers and writers too. It's an incredible skill. Speed writing is an incredible skill. It's something that you have to work at, something I've been working at for 10 years. You know what I mean? I wasn't very good at it at first. I was terrible at it. But this whole idea of having time to be creative doesn't exist for me. And that's not great. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there's like tens of millions of artists that are all feeling the same way if they have, outside responsibilities. And I'm not upset about that, because I don't resent the responsibilities at all. I just also would like to have some little space here and there. It was different when the kids were in school. Well, not the baby, but when the 6-year-old was in school, you get the day to sort of plan your own life. And without that, yeah.
Yeah. And
So
having to kind of speed write, I mean, whatever, that's maybe fine in a session, but do you put yourself under those time constraints too? Do you find that helps you, or when you're working alone, you kind of let yourself like take your time in it a little more?
I don't put constraints on myself. I'm terrible at that as far as structuring myself. I don't hold myself accountable or structure myself very well. Especially, in these kinds of times, it feels moot. But if there's a moment where I can be alone, then things start to flow, and I'm fiddling on a guitar, and I'll pull out my voice memos, and I'll record ideas, and it's just simple. It's just low-key, normal creation. That's what I like. That's what I miss. That's what I want more of. But the problem is that I don't have any alone time or spouse time. So any time that I may get, one or the other, that's like creation goes to the back burner. It's like, oh, it's 10:30 and both kids are asleep and we're not completely, asleep yet. So let's take an hour and watch a show together or do something, like whatever. And then that's it. That's the rest of the night is now doing that. And then there's no,
But I mean, those moments are important,
I know.
and like that does feed what you do. And I know, especially with you, I kind of want to talk about some of your songs and your lyrics because, first of all, I think you're just such an amazing writer. I love your perspective and your song Simple Things that don't roll your eyes at me. You're great. And I'm not trying to like be like, I don't know, promo-y or whatever, but I mean, that's why I even know you, is because you pitched your project to me and I was like, yes, I believe in you. I would love to be a part of what you do.
I mean, for people that don't know, we should
yeah, let's start there. Go ahead.
Preface it with, we met because I had a project that I needed help on. And I found you through someone who referred me to someone, and she's like, oh, this girl's great. And she's like, I was looking for a really great piano player, but someone who can sing. Right. And so you got referred to me. We met at the 101 coffee shop in Hollywood, which I don't even know if it's still in business. Hopefully it will be after all this. And it was for a song that I had very high hopes for. It looked like it was getting cut, and it was just me, and it was on Atlantic Records, and I needed someone who could like back me up and stuff. It wasn't until later, right? I mean, I remember calling you when we got the whole idea of it being a duet. Because at first it was just supposed to be like my solo song, and Atlantic was going to release it and promote it, and they were trying to find an angle. Here's the thing about major labels. They're always going to have to find an angle when they're breaking an unknown artist, right? Because I'm unknown. Doesn't matter how long I've been in the business. Doesn't matter how long, you're grinding it out. So from their perspective, I'm unknown. And they were looking at what can we do to break. We like the song. How can we get it out there with someone who has no cachet at radio, doesn't have tens of millions of fans? So the idea became, let's make it a duet and let's pair him with someone on the label who would work. And it just so happened that Christina Perri is also on Atlantic Records, and CEO Craig Kalman called her up and pitched it to her, or maybe I forget if it was her I went to her A&R Pete Gambar, or if it was, but one of them pitched it to her. She really loved the song, and then all of a sudden I had this project now where I had a duet with Christina Perri, who legitimized me at radio. Maybe that was the plan. And so then your role in it changed too, because then it became like, oh, now we really need someone who can like maybe take over that role when Christina can't do it on the road or whatever, like that kind of thing. So that's how we met. That was a long time ago. It took a long time for this project to get going.
Yes.
It's a whole other podcast.
And it's kind of crazy to me, the weight on one song. Did that ever drive you mad? Because I'm very ADHD. Like, I'm like, okay, next. Like, I'm ready for the next song. I don't want to focus on this song anymore.
I have basically spent the last 5 years of my life working 2 songs.
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy.
It's crazy. But that's all. It's only because I've been in the major label system for the last 5 years, and I've been working with their ideology. And the ideology of the business right now has very much moved back to singles.
Yeah.
There's no emphasis on albums anymore. There's very little emphasis on EPs even. I mean, everything is about the song, especially when trying to break a song or get a hit or get known or get whatever they're trying to do to create buzz. It's always based on a song. And in a lot of ways, we've gone back 60 years, 70 years to like the days of the single, which is really cool. But at the same time, I miss artist development at labels. I miss album development at labels. I miss art at labels. And I'm not knocking my experience, because I've had a really great experience with the label as far as like, even when we're developing one song, there's a lot of TLC that goes into it, and it takes a long time, and there was a lot of interest, and I'm lucky in that sense. But God, I don't you wish that in general, the business was signing bands and artists based on what kind of album they could make, what kind of art they could create, and then see if the consumer would like it because it was really good. That doesn't exist anymore. The business has become so much
too saturated. It's too saturated. There's too many people doing the same thing. And I think that's why, knowing your situation and your management a little bit, that's why there's so much focus on one song, is because they want to put all of their power and push behind a singular point to try to get through all of the noise, because there are just so many artists.
And that's the same thing Bruce will tell you. If you ask him about why this model, why did you choose this model for Xander? Why did you spend the last 5 years on 2 songs? It's because it is the only way to break through the nightmare of it's like, if you were going to make an album in 2020, or, I don't know how many people are making albums right now, but if you're going to make an album in 2020 and you wanted to make a 12-song album, and you're an unknown artist and you're out there and I'm going to put it on Spotify, I'm going to put it on iTunes, it's akin to taking it and putting it a message in a bottle and punting it into the Atlantic Ocean, and then hoping that 500 million people find it. I mean, it's like it's so overly saturated.
Such a crazy business, and it's like I don't know. I was asking someone on a couple episodes ago. She's the keyboardist for Beyonce's she's the keyboardist for Beyonce is what I'm trying to say. And I was like, would you like recommend anybody getting into music right now? Because now the gigs are gone and it's so saturated and it's like this whole online game only. And would you recommend it? Because it's like, it's really a tough business. Like, what would you say to a starving artist that's starting out that wants to get into music right now?
Terrible question.
I know.
That's a tough one because you don't want to answer, run away screaming with your hair on fire.
But you do. You
do. Man, that's rough. Yeah, and that's, I've been doing it a long time, and I have to constantly remind myself how far I've come, because it's so hard for me still to get caught up in what didn't happen, what I would like to happen, the successes I don't have, because everybody does that. No matter how successful you are, you're always caught up in where so I constantly have to remind myself, to count my blessings or to be grateful for what I've had or what I continue to have, because there's a lot of them. And I have to remind myself that 99% of all people that want to be in music, that strive to be musicians, don't have the opportunities that I have, or aren't, or haven't had the success that I've had. And I haven't had that much. So it's like, it's.
Yeah, but what you have had, having a song on the radio with Christina Perri, how was that for you? Was that surreal at all? Were you like totally ready for it? Was it like meh compared to what you were expecting? Like, how did that feel?
I was completely like over the moon about it. Actually, I don't let myself get excited about things in this business anymore. But once it was on the radio, it looked like things were going the way that they were supposed to go, which never happens. Never happens. Things never go the way they're supposed to go. And this is 2 years of buildup, 2 years of pre-production basically on one song, just to get it to the point where the label was really, they were promoting it. They were prioritizing it. They'd kicked it over to Elektra, which is actually the radio team that promoted the song. And they were, making it their priority at the label. I mean, that's insane. They don't even know me. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know these people personally, and they're like prioritizing my project. So all of that happened because of Christina getting involved. And when I finally heard it on the radio, the first time I heard it on the radio was poolside, because we were, I don't have a pool, by the way. We're not that fancy. I was at a community pool. I was poolside at a community pool. My daughter was in the pool. I was in the pool. My wife was pregnant. But we had like a radio, like a little like Bluetooth radio streaming the live feed of the radio station, the Pulse, Sirius XM, the Pulse, which is the station that had added it and put it into like really heavy rotation at the time. And they're great to me. Like they've played Made for You in like top 20 rotation for months back in the day, like when we were working that song. So I already had some experience with that channel. But I hadn't heard it yet. And when I finally heard it and I heard the talk up to it, I flipped the fuck out, especially because Jim Ryan, who's the only person who's ever believed in me in radio, and may only be forever, he was the one doing the talk up. So I heard Jim's voice come on, and Jim's got a very gregarious, I love his voice. And he's like, we've played him before. And I was like, I don't know, like something I could just tell. I had this like feeling that it could be the one, it could be, because I've been waiting for like a week to hear it. We've played him before. And then he said, we've played her quite a bit before. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to be my song. And then he said, this is Alexander Cardinale teaming up with Christina Perri for the latest single, Simple Things. And, on Sirius XM, the Pulse. And then it went right into, her vocal. And I was like screaming. And then my wife was taking a video. And my daughter was like trying to figure out what was going on. Like, Daddy's on the radio. And she's like, so? Like, she's so sick of the song. She's been hearing it for years. She's like, this again? Why are we excited about this right now?
That is so freaking cute. Yeah, and you mentioned Made for You. That was in a Coca-Cola commercial.
Right.
How much before was that?
5 years ago. So it was 5 years ago that we booked it, and it ran for like 2.5 years or something crazy.
Wow. That's crazy.
They kept renewing it. So they initially, I think it was supposed to be 18 months. And then it got to 18 months, and I think they picked it up for another 6 months for some countries, and then they renewed it again for 6 months. So it was this gift that kept on giving. Ended up playing in over 100 countries worldwide for that 2.5-year period. Which, again, if we're talking about blessings, financially, it was like the wind farm I'd never experienced before.
Yeah, getting that mailbox money.
It's crazy. Because the upfront money is never as much as you think it's going to be with commercials. I don't know if people know this or not. They think it's like, oh, you're going to get $1 million. No, it's, $30,000 to $70,000 typically for an upfront amount of money. And you have to split that with
That's a lot. But yeah.
It is. But it doesn't all go to you. You're splitting it with your whoever you wrote the song with, or your manager, and then taxes and everything. So really the money that you make from these things comes from the mailbox. It comes from, every, few months you get your residuals, and you get so I'd never had anything like that before.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that it's a good thing, and it was a blessing and a curse. The blessing, pretty straightforward. I was able to get the attention of the music industry for the first time in a 15-year career. Blessing, financially, I was able to support my family. All of those are great. The curse that I didn't even anticipate was that an artist that had been working for 15 years would have to remove 4 albums off the internet and basically completely recreate myself from the ground up.
Wow.
And so now, if you're looking at my image online, everything is through the veil of a very structured, business plan through this machine, through management and through labels and through everything. And it's still authentic. And I would never have done any of it if it wasn't authentic. It's not like it's weird or manufactured at all. I'm not like some guy coming out of prison trying to be like, like some manufactured pop star from because that's happening right now, by the way. There are things in the music industry that I think are being manufactured, but I'll get into that later.
You mean industry plants?
I think so. I think I can't prove it.
The best compliment I've ever gotten, for some reason, I got so many trolls on my first music video, She Weirdo.
Oh, okay.
But there were some really bad trolls, but there were other trolls that thought they were trolling, but it was honestly the highest compliment, and it was just industry plant. Oh my God, another industry plant. And I'm just like, yes, they think I have a ton of money and like a team behind me, and I made this by myself.
I know.
Like, it was the highest compliment to me. Like, it seemed like a diss, but I was like,
you're like, I'll take that.
Yeah, like, sure. I mean, I wish. I'd love to have that behind me, but I thought it was funny that they thought that.
I think I know it does exist, and I'm not going to name names, but I know it does exist, and I know labels that do it. But but it's not my label. I can't actually think of anybody on Atlantic that was a plant, but I think that taking down the music was my decision ultimately, so I have to take responsibility for it, because I was the one that distributed everything through different channels over the years, through different mediums.
How many songs do you have up?
I mean, over 20. I'm trying to count, because it was a 10-song LP and then I think 2 or 3 EPs. So, over 20 songs.
That you had been building over time, and
yeah, you build these. Even if it's a 6-song EP, it's a part of you. It's a part of your journey. And every EP that I released since 2010 has had success at getting syncs on TV shows, which is really hard to do now. And back then, I think it was a little easier. I think I kind of jumped in at a time where I was very lucky. I signed with I don't know if you would call them a publisher, but they were a company that pitched music to get syncs and TV shows and films and commercials and stuff. And you know, the first album I put up online got, I think, 4 or 5 major TV syncs in the first year. And
how did you do that independently?
Just having that agent. I just sent the music to every damn music sync company in the world. And the problem is now there's 5,000. In 2010, there was maybe 15 that I sent it to, and they were actually listening. That's the weird part.
Yeah. So you got in at the right time. I
did have an in there. To be fully transparent, I met the owner at a wedding. And I was like schmoozing with the owner of this company at the wedding, and then he, connected me to his head of A&R or whatever, and then so maybe he listened to it because his boss told him to. I don't know. You know what I mean? But ultimately, the A&R guy was like, "Wow, this is actually really good. I want to sign you to, and we want to pitch your music." But in full transparency, his boss might have told him.
Maybe had a little in. Yeah. Yeah.
So then, from there, I went to a different publisher, and then I went to a different publisher, and then and I've always had that fortunate success where, like, on the second EP and the third EP that we did, me and Morgan, by the way, I don't know if we mentioned Morgan. Morgan's my writing partner on all my stuff, Morgan Taylor Reed, and he's also my producer. And we've always had, for my albums, we've always had a lot of success getting them synced, and that's been something that I think had a lot to do with timing in the industry, like you were saying. It's about being, and we didn't even know it at the time. We were just like right there, and then it got really saturated after about 2015.
That's how it is. And now we have to think that way too. Like, what is that thing that's just starting, or that thing that isn't totally saturated yet that I could harness? And when you're in the moment, it's like, it feels like a risk, or it feels like it could be a diversion almost. Like it might not even do anything. But you take that risk, and then you look back and you're like, oh God, so glad I did that, because I was ahead of the game and did it before anybody else did. So that's good that you stumbled upon.
It's nice to have that kind of perspective from history, to look back at it. At the time, I was just hustling and trying to get anything and taking anything I can get.
And you owned all of your music at that point. You had distributed them yourself.
I was independent until 2015, when I got the Coca-Cola Commercial and got my first offers for a record deal. My first offer was it was December of 2015, because I got the Coke commercial in November. And within a month, I had offers. I think the first one was RCA. We might have had a Columbia. I don't think we had an official Columbia contract, but we might have had like interest. And then we had like official deal memo offers from like RCA, Warner Brothers Records, Atlantic. Like everybody was, I never thought that anything like that could happen. I'd been independent for so long.
Do you ever miss that? Do you ever miss being independent and just being able to put out whatever you want, whenever you want?
Of course.
Yeah.
And if I did it now, I'd probably get dropped. So it's a part of, and that's not to say it's a bad thing. That's my contract. It says that I can't release music without getting dropped, It has to go through the proper channels, right? If I want to be part of the system. I'm not saying that I always will, but I've been grateful for the last 5 years of this experience. It's taught me a lot. And I'm also grateful for the 10 years before that, when I was a kid and I was independent and I was doing everything myself from, I moved here when I was like, 17? I moved to LA, and I've been grinding ever since. Like, I didn't get my first record deal until I was like in my early 30s, yo. Like, it doesn't happen to a lot of people. And, there was a lot of like, not really like, don't tell them your real age. I'm like, But who cares? You know what I mean? Like, they know I'm not 18.
It doesn't, I don't think age matters anymore. I think good music and artistry always comes first. And in my opinion, as an artist, just from my perspective, I think it can actually be really beneficial to not blow up super young. For, first of all, sanity, personal reasons.
We talked about this.
We've talked about this, and I want to get into this more, but also developing yourself as an artist more. And if I had blown up when I was 19, I would not be happy with the artist that was out in front of the world looking back, you know, at who I am now and who I've turned into.
You would, if anybody who gets a tremendous amount of success before they're 25, let's say, and I mean like the kind that's superstardom, they're never going to be well-adjusted people. It's just never going to happen. And I know that's like very like a blanket statement, but you know, it's sort of true. You can't really name anyone who became the biggest star in the world, let's say 22, okay, biggest star in the world before they were 22, and didn't end up having psychologically damaging fallout from that, or addiction, or alcoholism.
Why do you think that is?
I think fame can be the loneliest, most isolating part of all of our society. And nobody realizes it. And it wasn't until I started to meet some of these people that I realized how lonely and damaged they were, and you know, flawed. And you know, you don't have to. I don't know people like Demi Lovato personally, but you can follow her story, and everybody can look it up. You know, she's had a tremendous amount of struggle from being, she was famous very young, wasn't she?
Yes, yeah. She was on Disney Channel.
So, I mean, I don't know if she's a great example of it or not.
No, she totally is. She's had eating disorders and suicidal bouts and all that anxiety.
I think I've read about addiction and alcoholism too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, addiction too. I want to even almost say that she might have found out she was bipolar. I don't know. That might have been BB Rexa, because I know she is.
Yeah, I know. See, this is the thing with it, is that there's just it's not healthy. I don't know anybody that's ever.
But see, I think it's even more probable because of the kind of person that is probably going to become famous. We're the artistic type. And if you're an artistic type, you've probably already got something a little cockeyed going on in the brain, and that's what makes them great. But that can also be a recipe for disaster if they're too young when it all hits.
You're not wrong. So I'm looking at this from a completely different lens, because I'm older now and I'm more mature I've been in the industry a long time, and I'm married to a psychotherapist. So
which is so cool.
Her practice is based on treating people in Los Angeles, and most of them are
in the industry.
Yeah. And so when we talk about things abstractly, and she's talking to me about, you know, her ideas about writing books about things, and just abstract thoughts about personality disorders and archetypes, there is an archetype for the person who wants to be famous, right? That archetype of the 15-year-old to 25-year-old person that wants to be famous will always have love and abandonment issues, and will always have some sort of compensation for that, either by wanting to be famous or filling the hole with too much food or too much alcohol or too much drugs.
Or too much anything, really, for that matter.
That's why, you know, addiction can come in a lot of different forms. So they're filling it with, they're trying to fill it with love. That's what fame is all about. Love me, approve of me, approve of me. It wasn't until I think even when I was doing this and I was getting the Coke commercial and I was getting signed, I think I'd already crossed over into a phase of my life where I wasn't needing that anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it came.
Yeah.
I think a part of the law of attraction and the law of detachment is, and this is true for everybody. If you think about anybody that you know that doesn't need attention, that doesn't need approval, they're just the coolest person in the world. Like they get all the attention, they get all the approval because they don't need it
By accident. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like it's and so I think the people that want to be famous the most should not be famous.
Wow. No, that's so interesting. And not to put myself on the spot here, but I'm just gonna like open up about it. Like when you were explaining the archetype that your wife talks about, like I've had those issues, growing up. I didn't have a dad. And it's like, if, like I said, if I had gotten famous too early, I think that would have been a problem. But I think because I've matured and I've come to peace with that, not only, but I've also developed a very positive spin. And I still have a ton of drive, and I would love to be in the public eye, but it's not for the reasons that I used to, because I don't need that validation anymore. I feel so whole on my own, and I do art for me, but I also want to help the world and like maybe make an influence. And I know how much artists that I look up to have influenced me. And if I can be a role model like that someday, that's my goal now. And maybe fame will help me in that. Reaching to people is the only thing that I'm thinking.
Those are lofty goals, and I totally, I would be the exact same way if I ever achieved any sort of like major fame. However, I think it's even simpler than that. I think I can boil it down to this. I like approval. I like when people clap at a show. I like when I'm playing in front of hundreds of people, and I'm doing a great job, and I end a song and the place, erupts with applause. I like that. Approval feels good. The difference is I don't need it. And so
it's just nice.
It's just nice. It's just this nice thing now. And if I don't get it, I'm fine. I'm living my life. Everything's cool. So it's just like, it's like anything that feels good. It's like anything that you drive at. My drive hasn't changed because I still want to feel good. I still want to achieve things. I still want to have fun experiences and have the most amount of fans I can have, so I can have good experiences and play music and have it be well received and have it be, but
I think that's the other parallel to this, though, is exactly that. Like, sure, maybe some people start with wanting to have the fame, but that's really the cart before the horse. The horse is that we love making music. This is what completes us as a human, as our skill. Right. And it's like, if we don't have that, we die. And it happens to be the consequence of having a successful career in that happens to potentially look like fame. So if you think of it that way, maybe fame isn't the goal. It's just a sign that you're moving in the right direction with doing what you love.
It's interesting because and you're not wrong. It's like, to be able to do what you love at the highest level, you have to achieve some sort of success. Otherwise, you're okay. I mean, and that's the other thing, is that if I wrap my head around it, I could be okay playing little shows at the local places in LA, like the little joints in Hollywood for, 15 to 20 friends and family. The rest, like, if I could still make music and still perform it, I would exist. I would live. I would have a family. Everything would be okay. But it doesn't mean that there's vanity or something superficial to wanting the higher thing, because that higher level of having a gold record or having a top 10 song on the radio, that standard raises all of that art. And it doesn't mean that and it's not, at least for me, it's not in a vain way or a selfish or a sort of like superficial way anymore. It's just that I wouldn't mind having that much success to elevate the amount of art, how I could create it. It's just, that's that's also why I think, like, even my manager, like, is like, if you really want X and Y and Z to happen in your career, we need a hit, or we need this song. It's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and I definitely, you talk about your music, and I don't think I actually know this about you. But where did the love for writing start for you? Like, were you just in your room on a guitar, or were you listening to music and was like, oh, I want to do that someday? I don't think I know.
You know, for me, I never really thought I was going to I fell into it because it was so organic. I started writing when I was 14 years old. Terrible song, 13 maybe. But I got my first guitar when I was 13. I think I was writing horrible songs, and I think it was just always just for fun, and it wasn't real, and it wasn't something that I ever thought I was going to do for a living. But I think it became more fun when I was 15 and 16, and I had a friend that was a drummer, and we would start just playing
Jamming,
and
yeah.
just jamming and just
That's where it
writing
starts
and
for a
just
lot
having
of
fun.
people. Yeah.
Just there was no sense of it being a career or a profession. And that continued for me until I was like 21. It wasn't until I was like 20 or 21 years old, and I'd already been in LA for quite a few years, um, before I really thought about making it something else. Like, I could have a go at being a professional songwriter or a professional musician in general.
And at
Wasn't
that
even really.
time, were you thinking like, because when I started thinking about what doing music was for me, I was in college at the time and I was like doing that booking gigs hustle and like trying to get people to play in my band hustle, putting flyers everywhere hustle.
Yeah.
What was your focus? Was it more the song, or were you trying to do book gigs, put a band together? Like, how were you going to build your empire at that time in your mind?
To be honest, I was scared shitless because I had no clue. I didn't know anybody in the business. I didn't know anything. I was completely lost. I was drowning. Um, I was playing at a place called Highland Grounds a lot, which doesn't exist anymore. And I was playing like kind of those, like, I mean, Hotel Cafe existed, but it was not even something that I could get into yet. Um, I was playing more cafes and coffee shops and kind of things like that. And I think I was really depressed and really lost and like didn't really know. I mean, everything just seemed so big and so daunting. Um, I think that's what led me to sign up to go to MI. I went to the Musicians Institute to do sort of a vocational program. It was only going to be 6 months. It was going to be to learn how to do
The independent
recording
artist
on my.
program, right?
Yeah,
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 that's the one that I did too. And when I found
right.
that out, I was like, what? Oh my God, we did the same program.
Yeah, however I did it, I was the first semester. I was the experimental program. I
Guinea
was the guinea
pigs.
pig.
Hmm.
I, it was called RAP at the time. It was the Recording Artist Program.
Mm.
They later changed it. Again, part of the experiment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I didn't retain anything that I learned there. I didn't want to use Cubase. I didn't like the interface. I didn't like any of the stuff that they had taught me. Like, went out the window. The only thing that came from it was meeting Morgan. That was the only,
Mm.
and I felt like maybe that was part of what was drawing me. I was lost. I didn't know and then I met this kid. Here he comes. He's 18, turning 19 years old. Um, and he was like the most insane piano player I'd ever seen. And so in my mind, it was like, oh, we should join up and play for some show. Like, why don't we come? We'll play the Derby. That's what it was at first. It was just a show at the Derby. Our friend Joe, our mutual friend that we met through, Joey, playing bass. We had another guy playing drums. We played a show at the Derby. He's insane on the piano. He was tearing it up, and he learned all my music in 5 seconds. And it was through that process of rehearsing for that show, when we're just f***ing around and playing during rehearsal, and I could name any song ever written, and he would just play it like a jukebox. Instant, and he wouldn't even think about it. It would just be like that song from 1994, that Third Eye Blind song from 1997, or what, and he would just And I was like, there's something here.
Yeah.
This person is extremely talented, and I just want to like work with them. And it took a couple of years of like being friends and kind of nudging and you know, I think you should try to make music. I think you should try, you know, maybe we should try to like create. And okay, fine, we'll do that. We'll get around to it. We finally got around to it somehow. I think I wanted to make a Christmas album, and it was because my dad owns a bunch of Christmas tree lots, or he owns a couple of Christmas tree lots, and I was like, oh, I'll sell them there. That'll be one of the, you know, I'll sell Christmas albums.
Oh, wow,
at my
that's
dad's
pretty
Christmas tree
smart.
lot. And I thought it would be I just wanted a reason to work with him.
Yeah.
And so then the great experiment that ended up paying off for both of us, because to this day he's like one of the, you know, most successful producers in Los Angeles. But what worked out for both of us was we got in the room and we were like, let's figure this out together. Neither of us knew Pro Tools. Neither of us knew about home recording, other than what I'd learned at MI and what his roommate was teaching him, who is an engineer. And between the two of us just doing it, we all of a sudden we're just multi-track recording, and we're stacking, and we're doing, and it was just intuitive. He just knew how to do it. It was like Mozart. It was like he could just look at it and play. The same thing with the producing. He could just do it. I don't know how. He had no experience with it before, but he just would pick up the guitar and then fly the guitar parts, and pick up the bass and lay down the bass parts. And then I had V drums. He would lay down the drums, and then he would figure, go record your vocals like that. And he would just stack everything, and then we figure all out the plugins and the whole thing. And after like I don't know, 6 weeks, we had like a little Christmas album, and that was what started the idea of like, let's make music, let's produce music, let's like make albums. It started from that little Christmas experiment.
Yeah, and it's such a good lesson. Like, just do it. Like, that's the Nike slogan for a freaking reason, because I had a similar experience at MI as you, is that for the independent artist program, for the keyboard program, whatever, I paid a little bit more attention. But the first 6 months, I was like trying to fit in, trying to make friends, trying to play shows, trying to be cool. So dumb. Regret that. Cool is not a goal. And a lot of what I learned there kind of just went out the window. And, you know, I've been learning to produce my own things. And just by doing it, you know, these DAWs are supposed to be intuitive. I'm a beta tester for Ableton, and it's like they want to know, how would this be easier? How would this make more sense? Like, they want to make it so it's like your hand reaching to a tool, and it's like, just, it feels right and it makes sense as a part of your process. And a lot of people are scared to just do it. And I think finding a little project or excuse, or just something in your mind that's like, okay, I need to complete this project for real. Like, no playing around, no trial runs, no studying, no whatever. This is it. This is the real, we're actually going to do something. You learn way more than you could anywhere else. And fortunately, we're in the information age. If you get stuck, if you get, you know, confused about something, you just freaking YouTube or Google it, and some guy will have a channel all about your problems.
Crazy. And I've watched you. It's just about confidence. It's just about confidence. Like, now that you're getting more confident, it's reflecting in your work and in your production. And like, you would never know that you were just starting out. You know what I mean? Based on like some of the things and you're just going to get better and better and better. And so it's like, confidence is a hard thing to acquire without doing it. But the more you do it, the more confident you're going to become.
I think confidence for me has always rooted in purpose, and also necessity, because I was searching for people to help me and work with me and record me for years and years. And I kept working really hard and like learning how to do things on my own this whole time. And like, the last thing on the list that I was still dependent on other people for was recording my music. And it's like, if I'm an artist, the music is the core of my business. I have to sit down and figure out how to do this. So it was necessity that forced me. But also just, you know, my drive has, like, I never wake up without a fire in my belly. Like, I wake up every day and I know I'm an artist and I have to do this. Like, I don't have another option. So, I can look back and regret and be like, man, I wish I learned sooner. Like, I always had this potential in me. But it's a part of the journey, and you learn. And it's not until you're really put to the brink and it's like, you gotta do this. We're human. It's not until it reaches that point that we'll actually do it.
So true. I always feared doing anything on my own. It took me a really long time, and I'm still scared of it, but because I'm not a piano player. Mm-hmm. And so my ability to create is about hitting drum pads and
No, but that's fine. And in today's day and age, a guy with a laptop in his room with headphones can create music.
Crazy.
Like, you really don't need much anymore. I don't know if you know about Splice. I should be sponsored by them. But like, just use that. That's what I did for the first song that we just did a couple weeks ago, Lifetime. I can't play guitar, and I was like all worried about not being able to lay down guitar because I know you want that country feel, and I could hear it in my head already. And I just went to Splice and found those samples, and it sounds freaking great.
And everybody uses Splice now. It's like an industry standard. It's crazy.
It's such a good
tool. On top
tool.
of that, there's all these other plugins. There's Arcade is another one that's really easy and intuitive, and you just play sounds. You play full chord progressions, My
guest from last week actually just told me about it, and I have yet to download it. But have you tried? Have you played with it?
Yeah, I've played with it. It's pretty insane. It sounds good, and
I've heard about
it. I've heard people talk about it. What?
It's a plugin?
It's a standalone and a plugin.
Interesting. Okay.
So the standalone, you could just. I don't know if you can record. Actually, wait. Not sure if you can record. So I don't think it's a DAW. I think it's you could play around and listen through it. You open it up, you can, but I don't think you record into it. I think it is.
I'm so excited to pull it up and play with it.
It's good for a lot of things, and I see why people like it, because it comes with, because if you're not a piano player or if you're not a guitar player, it comes with these really great sounding progressions that are just built in with a touch of a button. And you can like loop and stack and make a song. It's crazy, which gets back to our earlier point, which everything is so saturated that anybody can make music, and it's getting too easy. It's getting to the point where my daughter, who's 6 years old, I put her on here. Look at this. This is my little keyboard, right? I have a very small setup in the bedroom right now because we moved and I don't have a studio anymore. And my daughter put this in front of her. I put on Arcade, and for like an hour, she was creating chord progressions and songs and singing and creating things. And I was like, like, what's going on? Like, this didn't exist when I was coming up. Everything was analog. Everything was, even when it was digital, it was hard at first. Remember? Like,
it's a good and a bad thing. And I think I've actually been like thinking about that in my head, like fantasizing about what the future of music is. And it's like, I mean, it's almost to the point that you can like press a couple buttons and be like, I want this vibe, this tempo, this key. And it's like, you've pretty much got it laid out for you to at least write on. And then you can add the secret sauce on top,
It's going to get to a point where music will become templates and people will customize from there.
Yeah. Which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
I think it's good for writing. I enjoy it for writing. I enjoy being able to put down a really cool beat and just loop it and maybe just like a bass line or a quick piano progression, and then we loop it, and then everybody's just kind of like creating the vibe. That's cool. I don't know if that's great for production, because if everyone's using the same templates for producing them, the music's all going to sound the same.
I do think we go through different trends, though, sonically. And a cool trend that I'm seeing right now in popular music is this lo-fi, distorted kind of almost, there's even some things where it sounds like it's going through a phone, and then you find out later they did record it on their phone. And it's like some of these like older kind of old school techniques are coming back. Like, people are excited about trying tape and recording actual instruments.
Especially with the pandemic. Everyone's getting super lo-fi now. Like, if you listen, I didn't listen to the entire album, but I got through like the first half of the new Taylor Swift album, and a lot of that sounded like she did it very lo-fi to me.
Very much so. Very, very, very much so. And it's nice. I think people find that refreshing. And for me as an artist, you talk about confidence. Where have we found confidence? I think that's a big one for me, is doing research and watching these other young artists put out stuff that in an industry standard would be questionable quality, but it blows up anyway because it's quality, or it's quantity over quality sometimes, or it's just like the content is so good that it doesn't matter that it's a little bit not sounding as quality.
100%.
Yeah, so that gave me confidence too, to be like, you know what, if those people are doing it and just like throwing the stuff out there that sounds like not perfect, I think I should go for it.
Yeah. I mean, imperfect. Here's the thing. If you have a great song, it doesn't matter how it's really recorded. It doesn't. If it's an interesting song, if it's a good song, if it's the root of the idea of the song is interesting and relatable and people like it, it doesn't matter how it's recorded.
God, that worries me though. Like as a producer, I have that exact tape in my head, and maybe you're debunking it right now and challenging it, and it'll be a demon that goes away. But in my mind, I've been like, oh my God, this is a good song. What if my production is like letting it down, and bringing it down? So I do worry about that, because it's like sometimes execution does matter as far as people feeling it and interpreting it properly. I don't know.
I think, yeah, and I production can hurt a song if it's really done the wrong way. It's not right for the song. But if the song is at its essence, like I'll give you an example. I had a song, I don't even remember when, it was 10 years ago or something, and I was trying to pitch it to a publisher to get a publishing deal, and they loved the top line. They loved the writing. They hated the production. They just thought it was wrong for the song.
But they could hear through it and distinguish that.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So they were like, we love the writing, we love the top line, the melody, the structure, the lyrics, hate the production, think it's terrible. But they heard the song.
I'm going to send you that song that I've been talking about for the last week. I'm so worried about it. I keep tinkering over it and doing stupid things, just wasting time on it. And it's like, I'm just going to send it to you.
Keep it really simple and just let the song speak for itself.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's hard. It's hard to know when to like step away from the soundboard, step away from the computer.
If you can play it acoustically on a guitar or a piano, and it's a great song, then it's a great song. It doesn't need anything else.
So tell us, before we wrap up here, tell us what you're working on now, because I'm excited about it. I can't wait. And also tell us where we can support you and what you've done recently.
Oh, that's very simple, because I have 2 songs on the internet people can support. But we've already talked about why. We know why.
Yeah.
It was my call. I kind of regret it, but at the same time, there is something so refreshing about like starting over, and like now I get to create more albums and more content from this point, and I don't have to have my past haunting me necessarily. But
so tell us about that. Tell us about the album.
So I'm making another album now. I signed a publishing deal recently with E1, and I'm excited about that because I've been doing a lot of co-writing, and I've been writing with you, and I've been trying to write with as many people as I can, which is really hard right now, because obviously not everyone is doing these Zoom writing sessions. They're hard. It's not ideal. I think it works for us, and that's great, but it doesn't work for everybody. But the project that I'm working on is an album. I think I'm not really ready to talk about the details of it, but I do think it'll be ready probably by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right?
Where are you at with it now? How many songs do you have like in the pool?
Probably just like 3 that I'm excited about, and I'm just starting now to like create it, but I think it's going to be along the lines of everything that I've released. It's going to be organic. It's going to have roots. It's going to be rooted in Americana and folk and acoustic rock. Like it's going to have all the same roots of all my songs, but well, I'm just trying to make something as authentic as I've ever made. And this is the most honest I think that I'll ever be in this album.
Yeah. Do you have a working title?
No, it's the kind of thing that I keep changing in my head. It's the kind of thing that I'll get an idea and I'll be like, ooh, that would be great for the title. But no, I don't have anything official. And as far as, plugging anything, I have nothing to plug. You can go to Instagram and Twitter is @XanderMusic, or, just go to my official website.
What's your official website?
AlexanderCardinale.com.
Okay. I will link it all down below, and I've got your Instagram. That's just Xander Music.
Xander Music, yeah.
And if there's anything else, I'll link it in the description below. If this is on YouTube, it'll be down there. And if you're listening in podcast, it'll be in the show notes. So yeah, thanks for being on my show, Xander. I think you're so cool. I think you're so talented. And I'm really excited for this next one and the songs that we've been working on, maybe seeing the light of day someday too.
Me too. Thanks, Noves.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Later. Peace.
Thank you.